Statistics-based calculatedly best disposition is a phrase thrown around a lot in Warhammer 40,000 circles. Or it would be if any of those words made sense in a sentence. Of the dispositions, we're looking at the Recon disposition, why it looks good, is good, and how we have an advantage over other dispositions in our matchups against them. That is what we will cover today. First of all, what is a disposition? How do I get one? Are they contagious? To get a disposition, you first pick your faction, then you make an army list with units, and when you're making the army list, you will pick one or more detachments to be the sub-factions of your army. It depends on the game size you're playing. 2 detachment points available at 1,000 points, 3 detachment points available at 2,000 points. Each detachment comes with its own disposition, and from the detachments that make up your army, you choose one of the dispositions to be your Force Disposition. So when I have a 2,000 point army of Army of Faith, 2 detachment points, and Chorus of Condemnation, 1 detachment point, I have access to Take and Hold from Army of Faith, and the Reconnaissance disposition from Chorus of Condemnation. I choose one, in this case Recon, to be my Force Disposition. Your opponent has done the same, and you compare Force Dispositions. That tells you what mission you're playing. If my opponent had Eldar Warhost, that's Purge the Foe, that is their only choice because that is 3 detachment points. So I'm Recon, they're Purge the Foe, so I get the Triangulation mission, they have the Consecrate mission as their primary mission. I've played a lot of Reconnaissance recently, mostly into Take and Hold. I'm winning games and I'm having fun with people, but the disposition system is an extra barrier to saying, hey, I played that mission last week, can we do a different one? Because no, you're not meant to with the dispositions you each have. It starts to get repetitive and there are so many options and you get the same one each time. There is the option, even on the 40k app, to pick a custom mission that isn't tied to your chosen detachment, or you can pick random. But annoyingly, it doesn't show who they're normally played against, it only gives you the normal Force Disposition and the title of the mission. So if my opponent was Disruption and I wanted to play a Priority Assets mission, even though that's not my disposition, I couldn't see what they normally play against without the card deck or looking it up or clicking on one and then backing out and repeating. That's an app thing, don't worry about it. We'll mention other problems with the app later. Why is Reconnaissance looking good? It is a disposition that you set up to score a lot of your primary mission, and in doing so, can also score a lot of the secondary missions really well. We want to have units that are fast, and units that can drop into the back corners. So then we can do missions like Beacon, to have a unit alive and not in your territory half. Zoom into the enemy's territory, stay behind area terrain, then you can't be seen or shot. Get points. Outflank, come on from the board edge. Be behind enemy lines, land in the enemy deployment zone. Forward position to take the enemy home objective. If neither player gets any points for their home objective from the primary mission, lots of opponents are abandoning their home objective. You may be able to drop in and take it without any contest, even if it's not related to a primary mission. And if you draw any of these secondary mission cards in turn 1 when you can't have units arrive from Deep Strike, you can hold on to them and draw more cards in turn 2. You can score any of these whenever you want. That's an 11th edition thing, and you can score your secondary missions to get a maximum of 15 victory points per battle round. Reconnaissance gives you a style of army, like a makeup of your army, that is very similar to what you'll be familiar with from army lists from 10th edition. You know how to play to get into table quarters, to have the speed to reach an objective and complete an action. The army list that can do these things already existed in 10th edition, while others are grappling with a new way to play, concentrating their forces on the center, not including small units that complete actions, but then finding difficulty as they need to pull big units from important duties to screen. You are playing army list you know how to use well from experience, assuming you played a lot of 10th edition. Even if you didn't, when you're playing Reconnaissance, your primary mission doesn't require you to hold many objectives, so it works very well for squishy armies, like the Genestealer cult, like the Adeptus Sororitas. Toughness 3 is the standard for these armies. For the Genestealer cult, Reconnaissance is only in theory. I haven't played Outlander Claw, the only recon detachment they have in 11th edition of Warhammer 40,000. And when I'm playing Deathwatch, I prefer Take and Hold over Reconnaissance as my disposition in my Bastion Task Force plus Liberius Conclave army. Recon works fine, but sticky objective intercessors while the big battle line kill teams with Librarians rush and crush the enemy has worked better for me. So Sisters is where most of my early 11th edition experience is, with Reconnaissance, with the Army of Faith, and the Chorus of Condemnation. The reason I take these is I played Army of Faith as my main in 10th edition, and it works even better in 11th edition with the stacking of -1 to hit from Blinding Radiance with -1 ballistic skill from the benefit of cover. And I love Exorcists and Seraphim, so the Chorus of Condemnation is a must. And for that 4th army I'm known for playing, I have no immediate plans to play the Veiled Blade Assassin Elimination Force in a 2000 point game. It was ranked as the worst detachment in the game for a reason. When you're playing, experiment. Try stuff out. Find a disposition that you like that matches your playstyle. I like that there's a lot of discussion online as to the best disposition. Is Disruption a sleeper hit? Is Priority Assets the second best or the second worst? There's nice variation in thought. Should you just shut up and play Purge the Foe? Well, big remember, your disposition comes with a detachment attached. Purge the Foe may come with a detachment you don't like or is not going to be better just because the disposition is attached. Imperial Agents provide the clearest example. Don't play Veiled Blade to get Recon or Hereticus to get Purge. Imperial Agent players will want to play Imperialist Fleet, which means you're playing Disruption. If you want Reconnaissance, for the Space Marines you add in the Librarius Conclave or Subversion assets, they're 1 detachment point detachments, add on another 2 detachment point detachment, and that's a good army at 2000 points. For Genestealer Cult, you have to play the Outlander Claw, and that does not suit everyone. It is my least favourite detachment, even behind Brood Brothers Auxilia. Let's say for the moment that Purge the Foe was the best disposition. Some armies don't really do Purge the Foe. Sisters and Genestealer Cult are very squishy and will lose more units than they kill to their opponent. Transports pop, small units that are perfect for cheap resurgence points get blown away. You have to hold objectives too, and the Glass Cannon faction can only do 1/2 of the requirements of Purge the Foe. So even if Purge is best, or Reconnaissance is best, many players won't take that disposition. There was a tournament last week at Birmingham, the biggest grand tournament event of 11th edition so far, and nearly half of the players went with Purge the Foe. That seems like the disposition to beat. Is that the best? It's relatively easy. You kill things, that gives you victory points. You can do secondary missions that want you to kill. That gets you victory points. Killing the enemy makes it harder for them to score victory points. If you get battle shocked, you don't really care. You were not going to complete actions or hold objectives with a lot of these units. Almost 100% of your army as a Purge the Foe player can focus on killing. Other dispositions need to spread out and do other things to get victory points. And my playstyle has switched a lot from 10th edition to 11th edition. I'm not taking as many small units. They give up kill points easily, and there are fewer actions to do. There's only 2 actions in the deck of 18 secondary missions. It's easy enough to have a unit that has killed their optimum target and there are no light infantry near my Flamer Dominions. That squad can go and do an action. And regardless of disposition I'm playing, kill the enemy. Lots of missions have kill points of some sort, and also, yeah, if you kill the enemy, they can't score victory points. You can. In that Birmingham Grand Tournament, of the top 6 players, 3 of them had the Reconnaissance disposition. 2 of those players had detachments that let them also have Purge the Foe, and they passed up Purge the Foe to take Reconnaissance. The top players are picking Reconnaissance. Purge the Foe only suits a few factions. Space Marines can specialize into it because they have a range of units and rules to specialize into any style of play, but really Purge the Foe is for Custodes and Knights. Armies that don't have many units and want to get into the enemy and not spend army construction points for units to sit and hold objectives. Big murder blocks that are hard to kill and keep on punishing you is what they operate on. Horde factions are countered too easily. So I don't think Purge the Foe is the best disposition, even if it is popular as an assumed unga bunga me no do actions me hit things with club. Purge the Foe is not easy into Reconnaissance. So now we're going to look at the 5 different missions that we have against the 5 different dispositions. Starting with Purge the Foe. Their units have to kill us and then survive to take an objective with that unit and consecrate it with blood. Each objective can only be consecrated once. They're hoping to kill units in melee on objectives so they can do the killing and then the consecrating in the same turn. Try to avoid that happening. It is a cumulative victory point thing, so if they've consecrated once, that is something that's consecrated and they can score that one consecrated objective over and over in future turns. But there is no extra victory points for the second consecration, only if they do 3 consecrations. We can take out their killing units. Especially in turn 1, that's the focus, because we can't score our primary mission in turn 1, only secondaries. That's if you have a good opportunity. In turn 1, especially if we go first, their units are going to be hidden or obscured and so we can't shoot them. So different idea, don't let them kill any of your units in turn 1. Then that's a whole turn that they're not scoring. Stay hidden. Because they can score consecrate on turn 1. We score by completing an action in each turn. It's very valuable if you have infiltrating or scouting units that can do the furthest expansion objective first. Any gap in the enemy lines to get to that objective should be exploited. And feed only one of your units into the grinder. The official maps for this mission have 4 objectives. Some have all objectives very close to our deployment zone, so it's easy to reach them. Turn 2, do the central objective. Turn 3, do our expansion. That's lots of victory points. And as you get victory points for that each turn, the victory points number accumulates. You also want to hold one at least at the start of the command phase, so our expansion objective. To control 4 or more objectives at the end of the game is a bit more difficult. And because of how the official 40k app currently scores, where it conflates the end of the game within turn 5, it would be like 1 victory point. Max 15 victory points per round, 10 victory points assuming 3 triangulations, 4 victory points at the end of the turn from holding at least 1 objective. That is scored at the end of the turn in Battle Round 5. And then having 4 objectives gives you another 10 points. The app is a problem. I hope they fix that. The error is most obviously problematic here. The Tacoma FAQ, which may become the basis of the July FAQ, says that they are separate. It should be 15 points per battle round and the end of the game on top of that. But we don't know if the app will be updated at the end of July to fix that. So that's how you're going to complete this mission. A game plan to stick to, and going first can really help as it lets us get closer. Otherwise, if you can't get that furthest objective, triangulate the center, then your expansion, then make a concerted push for that last objective. It is hard, but our continuous scoring is higher than the Purge opponent. Purge players cannot remove our triangulation tokens. Once the action is done, it is done. This matchup rewards you for having objectives secured from units like Battle Sisters, Defenders of the Faith, so we don't stand on objectives for the enemy to kill us on and consecrate in the same turn. And it keeps us with objectives to stop the enemy getting victory points for holding more objectives than us. Purge the Foe armies tend to be very thick. A small number of big units with 2 characters, because their other missions are about killing more enemy units than they lost. They will be expecting lots of Purge the Foe enemies, so they will be planning to beat a Purge the Foe opponent. Reconnaissance is very different. Having a few chunky units makes them vulnerable to any of our debuffs as it affects more of their army at once. Battle Shock launched from an Exorcist, -1 to their hit rolls cast from a Magos, and more of their army affected by the sister tank benefits like a Castigator's bonus armor penetration for any shots going into them. It also makes it so you can take out 1 block and then get past them to triangulate. Their home objective is also viable to triangulate. If they don't keep units back to protect it from a unit that pops up with hand flamers, Seraphim or Acolytes, we can triangulate their home. So these thick units are a disadvantage to the Purge player. It's a very objective-based mission for a Purge player who has to do a surprising amount of take and hold. But in the next matchup, it's our turn to be take and hold. We're fighting priority assets. Search and scour. We want to control 1 or more central objectives. There's only 1 central objective in the official tournament maps, which are the same ones they recommend on the app, but you may wish to use your own map, or use the mission deck instructions where you draw a random deployment zone and then you roll a d6. If it's a 6, there are 2 central objectives on the map. In this mission, we essentially are turning into a take and hold army. There's no actions for us, only objectives and killing enemies on terrain. That is area terrain. Killing enemies on area terrain. It's not objective area terrain, any area terrain. You want to come equipped for that anyway. Use ignore cover castigator battle cannons, torrent hand flamers, and psychic weapons, or knives. That works too. Melee attacks don't care about the benefit of cover. The enemy wants to perform actions over and over on terrain areas within our territory. And from the second battle round onwards, we get 4 victory points for each objective we control that's not our home. If you can hold the center, and only the center, that is 31 victory points out of 45 without killing any enemies or holding any other objective. The end of game 5 victory point bonus is hard. Having no enemies within your territory is saying you have to have no enemies wholly within your half of the table. That's especially hard if you go first. They'll be able to sneak something in at the end of the game. Assume that that part of the primary mission isn't going to happen, or if it does, it was from wiping out the enemy army. Stopping the enemy from controlling your home objective is easier and is a must, as they get 10 victory points for doing that. So where's our advantage in this matchup? We don't have to complete actions. We can focus on killing and on controlling the central objective. The priority assets player has to complete actions and only within our half of the board, or the terrain areas that stick into our half. On layout A, this also includes the green pipes, which are 5mm into our territory and will count, and the green areas on layout C. They are viable as well as the central objective. We can prevent the action from happening by having one model alive on the terrain area. You don't have to out-objective control them. Their action can only complete if there are none of our units on the terrain. Reactive moves are your friend. Heroic intervention to charge in the enemy turn will also be enough to deny the enemy their victory points as long as we have one model survive. The enemy can only try the action once per turn, so there is no option to attempt it in 3 different places and score whichever one we didn't stop. That drops their primary score for the turn from a probable 10 down to 6 victory points. And their objective controlling score is for 1 or more objectives they get 4 victory points. Ours is 4 victory points for each objective excluding our home. If you held the center and your expansion, that's 11 victory points per turn. With killing an enemy unit, 13 victory points per turn. Our ceiling per turn is higher. Well, if the enemy fails to complete the action a couple of times and doesn't have our home at the end, you should have a higher primary score. You just need to do those secondary missions as well. Controlling the center, 1 expansion, and our home objective is the aim, and that also gives us a strong base to complete secondary missions, except for things like forward positions or tempting target as the enemy picks their expansion as the target. But we use speedy and deep striking units for that and any other secondary missions in their deployment zone. This is also the tactics in the mirror match. Reconnaissance versus Reconnaissance, the best versus the best. Honestly, whatever you do, the Recon player is going to win. So, you have to do an action. Extract intelligence from the second turn onwards. You put a marker on that objective. You can do it on each objective except your home. It's 7 victory points each time you do it. You can do it more than once per turn. However, that would be 14 victory points of your maximum 15 victory points for the turn. If you can, better to do 1 action per turn and score holding the center, or at least holding 1 objective. You can get an absurdly high primary score. There's no way to remove the markers. The enemy can put a marker on an objective that has one of your markers. That's all fine. If you do it 3 times during the game, you get an extra 5 victory points at the end. If you do it on the enemy home objective, another 5 victory points at the end of the game. So you should protect your home and keep your opponent fighting in the center. Drop in and take their home objective if you can. There's also an easy bonus for going first. Did you go and touch the central objective and control it? You get 6 victory points. If you have infiltrators, start on that objective to force the enemy to put a lot of objective control on it to take it from you. A nice big unit we can kill in the coming turn. If you're going second, you will have 1 last chance at the end to focus on an objective and extract intelligence. This is all about who can manage their resources, control the board, and deny the enemy access to objectives. If you keep control of the center, your expansion, and your home objective, you run away with the victory points. Let's expand out of 1/4 of the board though. In the Take and Hold mission, it's about having a presence in the table quarters. You don't need to hold a lot of objectives. If you control one at the start of your turn from the second round onwards, you get 3 victory points. Stay off the objectives, out of line of sight, behind barricades, and enemies will not be able to score the victory points for killing one of our units that was on an objective. They will have to get their own units onto objectives and then try and see us and kill us from there. So that favours a ranged army rather than a combat army. If the enemy doesn't shoot so much as a take and hold army, just stay off the objectives. That's one way of getting victory points. We still need to take objectives from them because they get 4 victory points for each objective they control apart from their home. And they get victory points for taking a new objective that they didn't control at the start of the turn. Which is where if we stay off objectives and never take them back, they're not getting an additional 3 victory points for claiming it, then losing it, then getting another 3 victory points for taking it back. We get 1 victory point per enemy killed in our turn. It's only on our turn. Destroying units with heroic intervention or overwatch, or enemies that blow themselves up with a dark pact that failed, do not count towards this if they died in the enemy turn. Although the enemy is the take and hold player, if you can hold your expansion objective with high objective control and a tough block like Battle Sisters plus Sacrosancts with a Hospitaller, if the take and hold player fails to get the objective from us, then we can leap into the central objective, and if you do this near the end of the game, when they haven't the units to reach our expansion, sticky objectives keeps it under our control, but importantly, they can't take it. Take and hold players can specialize into Reconnaissance by having lots of units, each 9 inches wide to deny our deep strike, or a unit on the home objective that has a 12-inch deep strike denial. But defending that home objective is not what other matchups want, including take and hold against Purge the Foe, the disposition that people are telling each other to watch out for. If your opponent knows you're going to play Recon, they might prepare the counter, but in a game where you meet someone at a club or event, or you don't tell your best friend that you play every week that you're playing Recon into the same take and hold army they always bring, you should be okay. To try and keep us out of 4 quarters rather than 3 quarters, which is where we get most of our victory points from, if they try and turtle up in a corner with good overwatch and deny us that +3 victory points from having 4 quarters instead of 3, they don't have as many units out on the rest of the board, and we can kill them and deny their primary score, probably more than they can deny ours. They also secede the board to us for scoring secondary missions. A lot of their army is sitting there waiting, doing nothing for an attempt that isn't going to come. Everything they do is something we can counter. Now disruption. The disruption player has to hold one objective that isn't their home and complete an action on an objective to set up a decoy. They can do this multiple times per turn, it's not limited to 1 per turn, and they can score it in turn 1. It's 2 victory points for each objective that has a decoy at the end of the turn, and a bonus 2 victory points if that objective is within our territory. One of the maps, the official maps, has all 4 no man's land objectives in both players' territory. So they're all within our territory. If it is part within a territory, it is within a territory. Look for the words wholly within or just within. Those are different. Smoke and Mirrors gives bonuses for within. Most annoyingly, this is the game where the map matters the most. Layout A has 2 objectives in our territory and our home. Layout B has 3 objectives and our home in our territory. And C has 4 objectives and our home in our territory. So they can score more victory points in Layout C than they can in Layout A. If it's your first time doing it, rather than picking randomly, Layout B is a nice compromise. At the top of our mission card, it says, you only have to touch the objective that has one of these decoys to remove the decoy marker. You don't even have to control the objective. You don't need to complete an action to remove the objective. Touch and run, or touch and surveil. We have to do an action, we have to spot the enemy. There's a lot to explain for this, so either take a break, like the video, and come back later, or lock in. You pick an enemy within 18 inches and visible, so watch out for hidden, which stops you seeing enemies over 15 inches. Then you don't have line of sight if the enemy unit is hidden. Also, you cannot complete the action against an enemy unit that is on an objective with 1 or more of their operation markers. They're decoys. The idea being, there is a deceptive device there, a hollow vid looping of an Eldar waving that distracts our unit from reporting the correct enemy unit. You can attempt the action multiple times per turn, but you can only score for completing the action once per turn. You get 4 points if one or more units were surveilled this turn. What you can do is move really close to the enemy, get onto an objective, touching it removes their decoy even if they had more objective control, then in the shooting phase, do the action to spot the enemy. 4 victory points. Removing decoys can be done at the end of any move, reactive moves from Dominion's Righteous Awareness, an ingress move, a consolidate move, all of these remove their markers. We have to get up and in there to stop them scoring points. Your army will have to be proactive to get into objectives and take out the small units that they will use to complete actions. This is a mission that is asymmetric, but really plays into each other's aims. Our action completes immediately, but that doesn't mean much. You still cannot shoot or charge in a turn where you performed an action. That's in the core rules. What it does mean is you can spot an enemy unit with like Seraphim and also have an Exorcist kill it right after. You get the points. It also means that if you can spot an enemy and then they have a reactive move to move away, you still saw them, you can still surveil that foe. Think of it like High Command wants to know what sort of units are in the enemy army and how they operate, not wanting to watch them kill our troops. So there's no penalty for killing the enemy after spotting them. That's still a spotted enemy. If you were to surveil an enemy unit that wasn't destroyed in the same turn, until the end of the turn they're surveilled, then it goes away. So you can surveil the same enemy unit again next turn. It's very easy to score. From turn 2 onwards, control an objective, control more objectives in the command phase than the enemy, and you get 5 victory points for clearing away all enemy markers by the end of the turn. If you continue completing the action and keep removing their decoys, you get 40 victory points throughout the game without ever holding an objective. That is your focus. And controlling objectives by accident a couple of times will get you that full 45 victory points. Both sides are doing actions, but really, we want to control as many objectives as possible to stop the enemy from planting decoys to score points. Denying the enemy points is important. We'll get lots of points continually ticking on. The enemy has to do lots of actions on objectives they control and keep us away from their tokens, where even a touch can remove the marker. That is a bar so low you could trip on it, and you would still remove their marker while tripping. The disruption player doesn't get any points for setting up a decoy, only for having a decoy on an objective at the end of the turn. So the disruption player only loses when they lose their tokens. It isn't like against Take and Hold, where if we took an objective then they took it back, they would get more victory points for controlling an objective that they didn't control at the start of the turn. Disruption player has no such luck. Their ideal situation is to move up and do 3 or 4 actions very quickly, then keep pushing into us to keep us away from their objectives, so they get lots of points continually, while also screening out our deep striking units. It's hard for them to do, so push into them first. If you have more objective control on an objective, they can't start to do the action. If we're really close to the enemy, it doesn't matter if they're hidden with super spy technology shenanigans, we can spot them for 4 victory points. Because there's a lot of actions and you want to track which units are doing the actions, I recommend getting a sticker sheet which has special stickers that you can put next to your units so you know which one's doing the thing, which one has an operation marker on it, and you can get that as well as shirts from the merch link in the description. I'll be moving on to Battle Sister videos next this week. Genestealer Occult videos will start coming once we have the official ruling on their army rule. Currently, you can't bring a unit back if there's a character attached. The Tacoma event FAQ has a way around that. That's explained in this video, but it's not official Games Workshop ruling yet. Then whatever you play, Reconnaissance style, have a great day of 40k.